All right, lesson 9.2 is solving, writing equations of parabolas and graphing them. So, real quick, whenever you do a parabola, if you remember, a parabola is basically it's a U-shaped graph. Okay, that's what a parabola is. There's different parts of the parabola. For example, the main graph, this is the main graph of it, okay? But there's basically three different parts of this that you need to be familiar with, okay? They're going to play a really important part in writing the equations and graphing these. And the first one is the focus point, okay? This is the point that basically the distance away from it is all the same, okay? The vertex is the point. It's the very bottom part of the graph. Okay. Now the shape of this graph can shift away from the vertex. All the ones that we're going to do are going to be on the vertex. So, or the vertex is going to be at the origin, but it can shift away. It's either the bottommost point. If the graph was upside down, it'd be the highest point. Okay. Or you'll also see in the next slide where we're going to have our graphs that'll go to the right and some that'll go to the left. So it's either the farthest right or the farthest left graph. And the last one is the directrix. And it just kind of acts as a boundary that says you can't pass this, you can't go past this part. And so the graph has to go the other direction. Okay? All right. So when you're actually graphing these things, these are kind of the basic graphs of all of these. So if I have an x squared term, the graph actually opens up, and it opens up around that y-axis, okay? If it's the negative x squared, the only thing the negative does is it causes it to open down, okay? If we square the y, it actually opens up around the positive x, okay? And then if it's a negative, it just flips it over, okay? So make sure you have this information because these are going to provide some real value later on, okay? All right, so some real basic information. The standard equation of a parabola, and this is if the vertex is at the origin. So remember, all the ones that we're going to be working with, the vertex is going to be at the origin, okay? And the equation is going to be, if it's x squared, so it's going to be if the x is squared, all right, so the x is squared equals 4py, okay? And the way you get the p is actually going to tell you a couple of information. The 4 and the y remain consistent all the way through, okay? Since this is the one that we're not squaring, that's where your p value is going to be, okay? And the other one is 0, since everything's going to be at the vertex. The directrix is the opposite of whatever this is. So it's going to be a negative p. And since it's y is the one that's not squared, and this is in the y position, this is equals y. And that's your line, okay? Your axis of symmetry is the one that's squared. So it's going to be x equals 0, okay? It's the one that's going to split down the, it's the one that's going to split it. Okay? All right. So the only difference is, in the other equation, is if we actually square the y. Okay? If we square the y, then we get 4px. And since x is not squared, then that's where your p value goes. Okay? That's how you tell the difference. And since p is in there, it's this. The directrix is going to be x equals, and it's just whatever the opposite of p is. So if this is a positive, this one's going to be a negative. If that happened to be a negative, this one would be a positive. And the axis of symmetry, which is the one that divides it right down the middle, splits it in half, is this one's going to be at y equals 0. Okay. So make sure you have this information filled out on that note sheet, because this is going to be really important information. All right. So let's take an example at number 1. The first part of this, all we're going to do is we want to write the equation. Okay, so it really comes down to 3 points, or 3 steps. The first thing is you need to identify what is your focus point, and our focus point is right here. So right now, since I don't move right or left, it's a 0, and I have to go down. 1, 2, 3. So I go down 3, which is a negative 3. Well, remember, one of these was 0. If I go back to the other slide, one of those was 0, and p was my other value, okay? And notice if this is in the y spot, then this tells me the one that's not squared. So my p value, so this right here tells me two things. First of all, it tells me my p is negative 3. The other thing it tells me is, because it's in the y spot, I've got to choose the one that's not squared. Other than that, all I have to do is plug in my p-value. So x squared equals 4 times negative 3y. 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. So your final answer is x squared equals negative 12y. Okay, and there's your answer. All right, example number 2. Let's go ahead and do this one as a you try. So you could pause the video at example number 1 or rewind it real quick and go ahead and do example number 2 and then go ahead and start the video. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is identify our focus point, and we find out that we've got to move 1, 2, 3, 4 places to the right. So my point is 4, 0. So P equals 4, but remember, since it's in the X spot, I've got to pick the one where X is not squared. So, and then I just plug in my P. So y squared equals 4 times 4, x. So y squared equals 16x is my answer. Okay. All right. In example 3, we're actually going to start graphing these. So let's go ahead and take a look at example number 3. Example number 3, we have the equation x squared equals 20y. We need to identify the focus and the directrix in this problem. So step number 1 is we need to make sure that we have the x squared term all by itself. So this one does say, it says x squared equals 20y. So since x squared equals 20y, then what we're going to do, the x squared term's already solved for itself. So we're done with that one. And the next one says you're going to take 4p equals the coefficient of the non-squared variable. Well, the non-squared variable is 20. And really all we've got to do is, we've just got to take 20 divided by 4, and that's going to give us 5. So that tells us that our p equals 5, okay? Just to divide it by 4, okay? Then you, when you're finding the focus, remember, it all depends upon, does the p go in the x spot or does it go in the y spot? And remember, the way that we tell is we look at which variable is not squared. And since the y is not squared, that tells us we have to select this one. So our focus is going to be 0, 5. Okay. So when we go to graph it, go ahead and plot that point, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plot our vertex. Your directrix, so here's the focus point. Your directrix, if I went to the positive 5, your directrix just goes to the negative 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And make sure it goes, okay, so this is going to be y equals negative 5 is your directrix. Okay, and to finish this thing out, you take your p-value, so it's going to be 2 times 5. And I go each direction 5, or 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's one dot, and I got to go the other way, because remember this parabola opens up both ways. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And there's my parabola. Okay? All right. So the next example, example number 4. Let's go ahead and do this one again. So again, this one you got to follow the same procedure, where we've got to make sure that our squared variable is all by itself. So since y squared is all by itself, I'm done with this one. Okay? So then number 2, all I'm going to do is take the coefficient, negative 8, and I'm going to divide it by 4. Okay? If you want to make this make sense, we're doing 4p equals negative 8. Divide it by divide it by 4 to get your answer. So divide it by 4, and I get negative 2. And that tells me what my p is. Okay? So remember, you got to decide, is it in the x spot or is it in the y spot? And since x is the one that's not squared, I've got to select this one. Okay? So it's going to be negative 2, 0. So let's go ahead and plot that point. So the negative 2 tells me I have to go this way. 0, 0. So remember your directrix. So here's my focus. And my directrix would be 1, 2 the other way. So this is my directrix. And it's x equals 2. Okay? And then to find the parabola, since my y value, this is really should be the absolute value, because you're just going to take 2 times 2. And so from the focus, and remember I got to go up and down, really the same direction as the directrix. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there is my parabola. Okay. All right, example 5 is a U-try. So go ahead and try example number 5 real quick. So go ahead and pause the video and try number 5. All right, number 5. First of all, same as always, our squared variable is already solved. So that step is done. Step 2, remember it's just 16 divided by 4, which gives us 4. So our p-value is 4. And you should have selected 0p because y is the one that's not squared. So our focus is going to be 0, 4. So let's go ahead and plot that point. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 0, 0. That's my vertex. And then remember my directrix, since I went up 4, I got to go down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So here's my directrix. So my directrix is y equals negative 4, and here's my focus. Okay? So then since my p was 4, I'm just going to take 2 times that. So it gives me 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And there's your answer. Okay? All right. So the last example, example number 6, I wanted to go ahead and do one example where, hey, what happens if the squared term is not all by itself? Well, the way you get rid of this, in this particular example, I just got to multiply by the reciprocal. So those will cancel and that'll cancel. Multiply this side. So it ends up being x squared equals 8y. Okay? Or, actually, let's write it the way we've got it. We get 8y equals x squared. Okay? So now that step is finished. Okay? The variable, or the coefficient of the one that's not squared is 8. So I'm going to do 8 divided by 4, which gives me 2. So my p-value is 2. Okay? And we need to remember, the one that's not squared is the y, so we're going to select this value. So my focus is 0, 2. So 0, then I got to go up 2. Plot my vertex, so here's my focus. My directrix is negative 2. So my directrix is y equals negative 2. Okay? And then remember, my p was 2, so it's going to be 2 times 2, which is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's my graph. Okay. All right, well, this completes the video for lesson 9.2.